Hey guys, welcome to Christina Cakes It. I'm Christina and today I'm making ice cream cone cake pops. So I've seen these ice cream cone cake pops floating around Pinterest and I've always thought they were so cute and I really wanted to make them. And since it's summertime, I decided it would be the perfect opportunity to make these. And my niece and nephew in Virginia, Sydney and Wyatt, also happen to love cake pops. And so I thought this would be the perfect excuse to send them something. So these ice cream cone cake pops are going to start in the very same way that you just make your regular cake pops. And we're gonna start with our cake layer and we're going to basically crumble it up and add our frosting to make our little cake pop balls. So I'm using an 8-inch cake layer. For whatever reason, this size 8-inch cake like pretty much matches up the ratio with a bag of candy melt. So that's what I always use. And I am going with funfetti. We just do a lot of funfetti around here. People seem to like that flavor and I know the twins definitely like it. So I am going to trim away the sides of my cake layer. That just like kind of adds like a darker color and like it's a little bit dry. I just don't want that in my mixture. And I'm just gonna start by kind of tearing this into pieces. And I'm just going to continue to make this mixture using a hand mixer. The best way to do this is to actually put this through a food processor because it gets like a really fine cake crumb. I actually don't have a food processor, surprisingly, but this will work just fine. So I'm just mixing this to get it like as fine of a cake crumb as I possibly can. So next I'm gonna add some buttercream icing, and this is just regular American buttercream. So there's not really like an exact amount of icing that you need to add to your cake mixture. It's really about getting the right consistency. And certain cakes are a little bit drier and require more icing and some are not as dry. Like for example, if I use chocolate cake, I found I need very little icing, if any, to make the right consistency. So you always want to start off with less icing because you can always add more. So I'm just going to start off with just a couple spoonfuls here. And after I mix it in, I'm going to test the consistency. So I'm going to pick it up and smash this together. And if it holds its shape, obviously I'm going to form these into like the cake ball shape, then that's what we want. But you don't want the mixture like with too much frosting, that's not good, and you definitely don't want it too dry. So this actually seems like the right consistency to me. So what I'm going to do now is just like you normally do with cake pops, I'm going to start forming my little round cake balls. So I'm just using these like freehand. Some people like to use like a mold or even like a meatballer, which I wonder if I should do that. Let me see. So you can form these freehand or you can get like one of these meatball makers. And I have found these are pretty helpful in getting the right size. And I'm just gonna form a round sphere. And the good news about this design is they don't have to be perfect because we're gonna cover them. And like ice cream cones are definitely not like a perfect round shape. So no worries about that. So I'm just gonna continue making these. It does take a few minutes, so just be patient and you'll get through all this mix. So these are formed and I got about 24 out of this batch. So I'm thinking I might actually need like another half bag of candy melt, so we will see. But this next part is imperative. These have to go in the freezer for about 20 minutes. And the reason being is we need these to freeze to hold their shape. So if you don't do that, your cake pops will fall apart. So mine are gonna go in the freezer for about 20 minutes. And while they are in there, I'm going to prepare a few things. So I'm going to line my counter with wax paper just to set up, and I'm going to prepare my candy melts. And something that was really helpful to me was when I discovered this product. These are easy thin candy melts. You can also use just like regular shortening, but sometimes if you're melting your candy melts, it feels like it's like thick and it's just like not melting properly. And these were so helpful and they have definitely saved several batches of my cake pops. So if you're having trouble, add shortening or add these. All right, so these are out of the freezer. They were in there for like 20 minutes, and I prepared my candy melts off camera. And we are gonna be using mini ice cream cones, so you definitely have to use the mini for this. That's the right size. I mean, I guess you can make like giant ones. I don't know if it would work as well, but we're using mini today. So I'm gonna take my little cake ball and I'm dipping it into my chocolate, and I'm just going to set it onto my cone. And I want this to harden. And I've seen people do it where they actually dip the cone and then put the little cake ball on top, which that way works well also. But what I realized is then you have like a whole half of the cake that doesn't have the candy melt on it. And I feel like it might dry out. So I think this technique will work better. You can definitely see that ice cream cone shape is very clear. So cute already. So the candy melts do harden pretty fast, just a few minutes. And when that happens, we are ready to dip this into our candy melt mixture. And I'm just gonna dip it in. And I wanna make sure to get around, oops, the lip of the cone, so I might have to spoon it, which is totally fine. So now these are all dipped, I'm going to prepare a little bit of melted chocolate, just using chocolate chips to add some final details to the top of our ice cream cone. So I have added my melted chocolate chips to a piping bag, and I'm just going to pipe like a little chocolate, kind of like, you know, looks like a sundae in the middle of my cone. And I'm going to add a little bit of sprinkle, of course. And we're gonna top it with a cherry, or in this case, a red M&M. You could use like a sixlet or like a little gumdrop. I just could not find either of those, so M&M works perfectly. And there you have it, so cute. All right, so my ice cream cone cake pops are done, and they are so cute. I love how they turned out, and honestly, they were so easy. So I hope that you guys do try making these, and I do hope that you liked this episode. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.